One of the most often heard criticisms of the modern Paper Mario games is about its characters and how they all seem to be variations of Toads or other well-established Mario enemies. It feels like nowadays we get one original character to serve as Mario's main partner, and maybe if we're lucky we get an original villain, but that's about it. But as anyone who has been with the series for a while, or just anyone who has bought the recent remake of the Thousand Year Door will know, this is not how things used to be. Weird, original, or rarely seen species are Paper Mario heritage, and today I want to take you on a tour along some of the weirdest we've ever seen and the many oddities about them. Let's get started. We begin of course with the original Paper Mario on Nintendo 64. Here, things started out somewhat reserved, with about 3 or so fully new races and several that either barely ever appear in the Mario franchise or are related to well-established enemies. Let's start with some original ones like Wacka, the cute blue moles who are obviously based on the game of Whack-A-Mole. Whenever you hit them over the head, they drop a Whack-A-Bump, which is like a sort of pastry based on a bump and heals a ton of H and FP. This valuable treat has made Wacka a species close to extinction, which explains why they're extremely rare in the games. In the original Paper Mario, one Wacka can be found on Mount Rugged for you to get your bumps. Interestingly enough, unused but leftover data in the game suggests this Wacka was originally gonna get mad after being hit too much and attack you, as enemy data for it exists. This would eventually end up happening a whopping 24 years later, as the Switch remake of the Thousand Year Door includes Wacka as a new hidden super boss. After beating Bonetail and hitting Wacka 8 times in his usual spot on Keel Hall Key, he will be waiting for you as the final boss of the Pit of 100 Trials. Wacka is a serious threat, mostly because he uses his bumps to heal and attack you for serious damage. And this is apparently not even remotely what he's capable of, because after the battle, he thanks you for playing with him. That's all this was to him, a little roughhousing. Wacka later makes another appearance in Super Paper Mario, but more interestingly, he's one of the few original Paper Mario characters to also appear in other Mario sub-series. In Mario Party 6, Wacka appears in Snowflake Lake, popping out from under the snow. The same also applies to the stars, which are not just Super Mario 64 collectibles, but also a species from the original Paper Mario. This is a bit of a weird classification with many maybes attached to it. What we do know for certain is that the 7 star spirits from Paper Mario and Mario Party 5, as well as the star kids they watch over, are a part of this species. More questionable names include Geno from Mario RPG, who is said to be a type of star being, and the star sprites from the Mario and Luigi series, of which Starlo is the most well known. Either way, back to the star spirits, who are 7 powerful stars captured by Bowser. We've got Eldstar, the unofficial leader, Mamar, the kind and happy one, Scholar, the smart one, Muscular, the strong one, Clevar, also the smart one, Mistar, the pure-hearted one, and Kalmar, the one whose mustache I've always seen as a panic mouth. All star spirits possess special abilities that Mario can use in battle upon freeing them. I won't cover them all, that would take too long, but I do want to highlight Mistar, whose power is literally just giving Mario a little smooch. Compare that to Scholar, whose power is summoning an entire star storm, and you begin to see that even star spirits aren't born equal. Another species that can only rarely be found in the series, to the point that you wonder why they even exist, are the Bubulbs. Unlike Wacka, who's rare because he's special, Bubulbs are just pretty normal sentient flower bulbs. They live mostly in the flower fields of the original Paper Mario, although 2 have migrated to Petalburg found in the Thousand Year Door. In order to access the flower fields though, Mario first needs to obtain the magical seeds, which are given to him by 4 Bubulbs spread throughout the world. Mario never questions where these seeds come from, but I'm hoping we're not looking at another Korok situation here. Anyway, we also learn these creatures require sunlight in order to be happy or live? It's never really explained. Anyway, Mario needs to stop Huff and Puff from blocking out the sun and returning the sunlight to the flower fields. And when he does, to thank him, they erupt into a serenade as Mario goes on his merry way. To find some other weird species, I'm sure, like a race that is technically not a Paper Mario original, but has only sparingly appeared in other Mario games, and weirdly enough, are mainstays in the Yoshi franchise. These are Bumpties, little penguins which are actually not the same thing as the penguins you may know from Super Mario 64 or Galaxy. This species originated from Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, and have since appeared in plenty of Yoshi games, like Yoshi's Story or Yoshi's Woolly World. They have also appeared in the main Super Mario games once, but it was one hell of a niche appearance. In the World E level Slip Sliding Away from Super Mario Bros. 3, Bumpties appear as enemies. That's not the role they have in Paper Mario, where all Bumpties are cute little allies. They mostly live in Shiver City, where they are actually confusingly enough referred to as penguins, even going as far as having a mayor named Mayor Penguin. The most famous Bumpty here is the writer Herringway, whose name is a pun on real-life famous novelist Ernest Hemingway, the term red herring, meaning a false clue, and the fish herring, which penguins eat. Confusingly enough, he is the writer of the in-game book Paper Mario, which kinda makes him a self-insert on the developer's part. The Thousand Year Door also features a few Bumpties on holiday, and one notorious one, Detective Pennington, or as he prefers to be called, the penguin with the improbably large brain. Sounds more life-threatening than clever, but whatever. Together with Mario, he solves the mystery on the Excess Express, like the Sherlock Holmes reference he is. And then we have Dugans, a species of dogs which are like the Goofy to the Chain Chomps Pluto. They made their debut in the original Paper Mario with the father-son duo of batch sellers Ruff and Ruff, but will mostly be remembered for their appearances in the Thousand Year Door. They can be found commonly in both Rogueport and Glitzville, and generally speaking have a bit of a tough attitude, which makes sense considering these two locations. One Dugan who really stands out from the crowd though is Elvis impersonator Dupree. He's what we would today call a Me Too machine, but in the early 2000s he was considered an unsuccessful womanizer. In the original game he speaks with a written French accent, but in the remake he instead tosses in actual French words. Anyway, all throughout the game, he can be encountered and will aggressively and unsuccessfully hit on any woman he can find, until he gives up and moves to Keelhaul Key out of pure frustration with the women of the world. At least he forgives them. Time to move on to the Thousand Year Door proper now, with in my opinion the species that was done the dirtiest in the entire series, the Punnies. Little insect creatures who live in the Great Tree in the Bogley Woods. I will never understand why Panio wasn't made a full-fledged partner. He's the future leader of his tribe, but right now he has all the time in the world to join Mario on his quest, which he already does during this chapter. And it's like the developers knew, because he even appears during the ending along with all other partners on the docks of Rogueport. Anyway, he and his people are clearly references to Pikmin, which was a brand new series at the time. 100 little dudes following after you, who scatter upon being scared, doesn't get much closer than that. I also want to shed some light on this concept art for the bunnies, which shows some other considered designs, some of which I actually strongly prefer. These little bird ones are especially great, they're easily my favorite. However cute as bunnies may be, we cannot close our eyes to the wars and hardships they've been involved in, most, or I hope all, against their great rivals, the Jabbies. These mosquito-like creatures align themselves with the X-Nauts in order to gain control of the Great Tree. Not much is known about them really. We really only get to hear one side of the story, but we do know Jabble is cool. He's friends with Punio and rejects his brethren to help his friend. Maybe they're not all so bad. Next is one of the weirdest species in Paper Mario history, the Ratatouille. Only 2 of these exist in the entire franchise, which makes you wonder why they even exist at all. One is a businessman found on the Excess Express, and the other is Lumpy, a green variant who can be found in Rogueport docks and plans to go to Dry Desert to find oil. Bro really needs to have a talk with those crows in Twilight Town, all resources are not the future. But I lend him some money anyway, and lo and behold, he actually returns later having succeeded, giving you a big return on your investment. He also writes a logbook about his time in the desert, which Mario can read after he has returned. The stories themselves are nothing too interesting, but they do include some nice callbacks to characters from the first Paper Mario, like Colorado, Bazaar and Mustafa. Another fun little fact I want to mention about this guy is how his name in many languages actually refers to oil, which it doesn't do in English. In Japanese, he's called Momorimu, which is an abbreviation for petroleum. This is also referred to in Dutch, where his name is Petrov. His French name, de Fiu, contains the word fiu, which means fuel. And then there's German, where his name is Pinky. That localizer might want to get himself checked for color blindness. Next, I want to tackle 2 species from the game who don't actually have a confirmed name. The first is what we may assume is the Craw, but we can't be certain. This bird-like race is mostly found in Rogueport as members of the Rabo Thieves. The crows, probably, using spears to attack. Now, the name of this species is never mentioned in-game, but the existence of the Dark Craw enemy implies that is the name for the normal equivalent. It could also be possible that Rockhawk is a member of this race, but we don't know for certain. And speaking of the king of the glitz pit though, there's also the security guards at that location, which are from a race that doesn't really resemble anything we know of. In fact, if you think away that ponytail and the sunglasses, they honestly resemble Wacka more than anything. I doubt that's intentional, but still. And then we get to Super Paper Mario, which is just jam-packed with all kinds of new and original species and characters. So many in fact that I won't tackle even close to all of them. This video is already getting longer than I expected as is, but who knows, there's always the future. But there are some I definitely think belong in this video, like the two races who play a major role in Chapter 5, Land of the Cragnons. One of those are the titular Cragnons, a species of cavemen, which brings up a lot of questions about the history of humans in the Mario world. The design of the Cragnons' faces is based on the paintings of Pablo Picasso, and they tend to speak using terms like crack or bra frequently. I guess their every moment is a bra moment. They also worship a sort of deity, which is actually pretty rare in the Mario franchise. The big rock who watches is their stand-in for a god, and is what they end up thanking when Mario shows up. You see, many of their kind have been kidnapped by the other weird species from this chapter, the Florosapien. They are sentient sunflower creatures in the most basic form, loyal to their king Crocus IV. True to their flower power origins, the Florosapiens speak with a sort of hippie tone, complete with very modern stances on pollution and the like. And while they are the villains of this chapter, it later turns out it was a bit of a misunderstanding. Cragnons were inadvertently polluting the waters of the Florosapiens, sickening them. The kidnappings that followed were retribution. But after Mario helped solve the problems, they both agreed to cease their harmful ways and live in peace again. Oh, and if you want to know more about the coolest Cragnon of all, Flint Crackley, check out my video on forgotten Mario characters. On to another species based on real-life history, the Akpau, the name of which is derived from the sound of a whip. And they do also use one, although it's not exactly for nice reasons. Akpaus can be found in Merle's mansion, where they work for Mimi. They are essentially higher-ranked servants, which is very similar to the system used in ancient Egypt, which their design is also clearly based on. Their job is to make the lower-ranked servants work hard and then pay them when they're done, with the last part doing some heavy lifting here and making this kid-friendly. Because really, this is the kind of species you only find in the Mario RPGs. Stuff like this wouldn't appear in the mainline Mario games in a million years. And the same applies to the contents of Chapter 7, which revolves around the age-old question, what happens after a game over? Well, based on the beliefs of ancient Greeks and modern Christians, there are 3 possible answers depending on the person meeting their end. The good folks go to the over there, the equivalent of heaven, to become Nimbi, a species not so subtly based on angels. They think quite highly of themselves, and their name is a double entendre based on Nimbus, the Latin word for cloud, and NIMBY, the abbreviation meaning not in my backyard, which fits these guys like a glove. They also speak Elizabethan English, so with a lot of thous and these. The other 2 post-mortem species can be found in the Underwear, a mix between hell and the ancient Greek idea of the underworld. Here we find the Scalobits, which are technically more enemies than a race, but still. They're what becomes of fallen villains, and serve under Bone Chill, a dragon who is a fallen Nimby and as such, a pretty obvious reference to Satan. Yeah, intelligent systems was not messing around here. Also stuck in the Underwear are the Shades, which are people whose lives balanced good and bad. They don't have to suffer down there or fight battles for Bone Chill, they can just chill and relax in a sort of spirit-like state. It seems like a pretty peaceful existence, honestly. They just have conversations about their lives and deaths while they neither suffer nor prosper. Well, it is definitely true that following Super Paper Mario, original characters, species and races would become exceedingly rare. I don't want to leave the later games to the wayside entirely, so let's talk a bit about the Shangri Spa Toads. I remember thinking these were just costumes my first time playing Origami King, where they appear, but it turns out this is actually a subspecies of toads. They all wear heavenly white, are barefoot and have wings on their backs, which makes it kind of obvious what kind of vibe this spa is going for up there beyond the clouds. However, there are no game overs involved here. This truly is a spa, with paying customers and 5 springs that Mario must visit in order to restore Bowser Jr. to his normal self. He had been cut up by scissors, it was a whole thing, you had to be there. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot more I can say about these toads, there isn't even one named individual in the game, but please let them serve as a gateway towards the return of actual original species and races to the Paper Mario series. It really makes for some memorable moments. And that's all I've got for you today. Which one of these is your favorite? or did your favorite miss out? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel to stay updated on all my future Mario content coming up. For now, thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.